All right, today we are diving into a scientific paradox that is, frankly, mind bending, and it could totally change how we think about getting older and staying strong. We're going to be looking at those super popular GLP 1 drugs, the ones famous for weight loss, and we're going to ask a question that sounds, well, kind of backwards. I know, right? It sounds completely nuts. How can a drug that helps you shed pounds also be used to bulk up? But you're going to see that the science here points to something way more complex and, honestly, surprising than you'd think. And this isn't just some weird science trivia. It gets right to the heart of a huge public health issue. And that issue, that crisis really, is this silent epidemic of muscle loss that happens as we age. For literally millions of people, getting older means getting weaker. And that has some really, really serious consequences for their lives. So, the official medical term for this is sarcopenia. And listen, this isn't just about not looking as toned as you used to. No, this is a progressive condition where your body's engine, your skeletal muscle, actually starts to break down. You lose size, you lose power, you lose function. So why does this matter so much? Well, because sarcopenia is a direct line to becoming frail, to having devastating falls. It's a thing that robs so many older folks of their independence. It leads to disability, and this is the scary part. It actually increases the risk of dying prematurely. So you can see why finding a way to fight this is a massive priority for researchers. Okay, so with the stakes being that high, scientists started looking for answers in some pretty unexpected places. And the first huge clue in this whole mystery came from animal studies using those exact same weight loss drugs. And what they found was, wow. Just wow. Just look at this, 100%. In every single study where animals were given low doses of these GLP-1 drugs, they gained muscle mass. That's not a fluke, that's not a maybe, that is a consistent, powerful signal that these drugs can build muscle. And it gets better. Even when they bumped the dose up to a medium level, the results were still overwhelmingly positive. I mean, over 83% of the time, the animals were still gaining muscle. So the evidence was really starting to pile up. It seemed like these drugs had a secret superpower. And this wasn't just about the muscle getting bigger on a scale. We're talking about real, functional improvements, like better grip strength, and when they looked under a microscope, the muscle fibers themselves were literally getting thicker. So at this point, the case for using these drugs to treat sarcopenia looked like a slam dunk. But then the story took a sharp turn. Because when the research shifted from lab animals to actual people, well, the story got a whole lot messier. All those clear, promising results from the animal studies suddenly went sideways. And here it is. This is the core of the whole puzzle. In animals, these drugs consistently build muscle, but in humans who are taking them for weight loss, they often lose lean mass. That's muscle, right along with the fats. So what on earth is going on? Why this huge contradictory result? And just to make things even weirder, get this. Some studies found that people who are already suffering from muscle loss, from sarcopenia, sometimes have naturally higher levels of GLP-1 in their bodies. That's the very hormone these drugs are based on. It makes no sense. It's the exact opposite of what you predict. Okay, so to figure this thing out, we have to zoom way in. We need to go from the big picture all the way down to the microscopic level, right inside an individual muscle cell, to see how these drugs could possibly be having these crazy contradictory effects. Now, I know this looks super complicated, but don't worry. Just think of this as the scientific blueprint for how these drugs could, at least in theory, make a muscle cell healthier and stronger. This diagram lays out 5 different ways the drug can have a direct positive effect on the muscle, from its energy production to inflammation. So let's just break that blueprint down into simple terms. The science suggests these drugs have at least 4 amazing benefits for our muscles. First, they boost our little cellular power plants, the mitochondria. Second, they help cool down the kind of chronic inflammation that chews up muscle over the years. Third, they actually put the brakes on muscle protein breakdown. And finally, they help fight something called oxidative stress. All 4 of those are huge wins for keeping muscle healthy as we age. So, let's recap. We've got incredibly promising animal studies, we've got confusing human results, and we've got a solid scientific reason for why it should work. So it's time to play detective, put all these clues together, and see if we can solve this mystery. And it turns out the master key that seems to unlock this whole paradox is the dose. The dose.
Look at this chart from the animal studies. At low doses, body weight tends to stay the same or even go up. That's the muscle building effect. But at high doses, the kind that people use for weight loss, body weight consistently goes down. This is a huge clue. It suggests the muscle building and fat loss effects might be happening at totally different dosages.
So what's the bottom line for people? Well, this table really clears it up. For somebody who has what's called sarcopenic obesity, that means they're carrying too much fat and have too little muscle. A low-dose strategy could be a game changer. It could help them lose the fat while actually holding on to or even building muscle. But for someone just looking for general weight loss, that standard high-dose approach carries a very real risk of losing that precious muscle you want to keep.
And that leads us to the final and maybe most important takeaway of all. This isn't about finding a magic pill. The real future for treating age-related muscle loss is probably going to be a smarter, combined strategy, using these drugs at a targeted low dose in combination with the things we already know build muscle, lifting weights and eating enough protein. So we're left with this really fascinating thought. What if we stop thinking about medicine and fitness as two separate things? Maybe the real key to staying strong and vibrant as we get older is a prescription from the doctor paired with a dumbbell from the gym. It's a powerful question, and you can bet scientists are racing to find the answer right now.